Hey everybody! Looks like we're jumping in here. I'm going to do another stream about what I've been reading recently, the past few weeks, since my last stream when I did a test. Before I get too much into it, I want to go ahead and take a few minutes. If I'm going to do this stream, I want to give us some time to warm up and get to know one another. And, you know, anytime you have questions, comments, concerns, anything you'd like to point out or discuss, you know, you can always let me know. Here's the comment. Still can't figure out how to enable chat in here. So, before I get into talking about the comics, I want to go ahead and give a little background of comics and books and whatever for my background history, right? So I was reading comics since I was a kid. I don't remember when. I do remember reading comics when I was a youngster, though. My grandpa would take me out to the comic shop once or twice a month, usually after school. Sometimes if I got good grades, too. And, you know, buy me a comic or two or three or what have you. I was most into the superhero comics when I was younger. I don't remember really following too closely with very many favorite superheroes. I was into, you know, X-Men. Wolverine was my favorite when I was a kid. Batman was okay. There was one more. And Superman. However, like I said, I didn't really follow them too closely. I just would grab whatever comics or whatever, what have you, right? And for a time, I had Spawn issues 1 through 20. And in high school, I had a cat that climbed into the drawer where all my comics were and shredded the fuck out of most of those. I only have like 2 or 3 issues out of those first 20 Spawn comics that are still intact, and I did lose that first issue, and quite a many of those first 20. That was kind of upsetting too. I think Spawn was one of my more favorites when I was a kid, right? So that continued on for a few years, and in about 4th grade, I was attacked by a Rottweiler, and I really did not enjoy comics at all whatsoever after that point. Like, I was still into them, kind of, sort of, passively with friends. I really didn't get too much into it. I wasn't as passionate about it like when I was younger. And I think finally around like 15-ish, I stopped altogether, stopped paying attention to comics altogether. Nothing really interested me at all whatsoever. So I didn't really get back into comics at all until about 2 years ago. And between that time, I was like, yeah, comics are for kids, blah, 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 whatever. And I kind of just slept on comics altogether. However, there was a few that I would like occasionally hear about that I should check out. However, I really didn't pay attention because mostly associated comics with like children and shit. Not really paying too close attention that there were comics more aimed at, you know, adults, right? So now that I got into it a couple of years ago, what got me into it was I binge read and caught up on most of the Walking Dead issues that were released up to about 2 years ago. I forget which issue it was that I read up to. However, I do recall that it was more than 100 issues at that point. So that really got me into it. However, after that point, I really didn't continue reading. I only read The Walking Dead. That's the only comic that I really did pay attention to. And then last year in 2014, I was like, you know what? For gold for the year, I'm going to go ahead and start reading comics again. Now, there was Rat Queens, which my friend was constantly tweeting about. She was so hype as fuck about that. So I went ahead and decided to check that out. I thoroughly enjoyed the fuck out of Rat Queens Volume 1. And I've been binge reading comics since then, pretty much. Now, also for books, I was reading like Stephen King and shit since 4th grade, right? Like I constantly would just read books and read books. And then I went to college. And it was mandatory to read all kinds of boring ass text and shit like that, right? So I really was completely turned off of reading in my leisure time altogether, whatsoever. That lasted from I started college in 2006 and graduated in 2010. So I didn't really have any kind of interest or passion. I was just so fucking burnt out that I didn't really read anything more than articles until, 2013? So I'm really glad that now that I've gotten my passion back for it, that I can pick stuff up and read it. Sometimes I'll binge read more than others. Sometimes I'm not too interested in it as much. Otherwise, I'm really cool. I'm really glad to be back into it. Really glad to be reading comics again, reading books again, what have you. And, since I've been binge reading the shit out of it, I have quite a few comics and manga and books that I actually want to discuss. So that's why I'm here doing this. I'm still kind of looking for a working partner, so we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, for right now, I'm going to try to do these at least once or twice a month. Again, like I said, it really depends on how much I've been reading, what I've been reading, and what have you. So, like, if I'm reading a book and it takes me 2 weeks to get through a single book, well, there goes, every 2 weeks or what have you. Now, if I'm binge reading the shit out of a lot of stuff, like volume after volume of random comics or manga or whatever, I might go ahead and do it like once a week. So it really just depends on how often I'm going to do these. Now, I said this, I was going at length just because I was doing a warm-up. Like I said, this is our chance to get to know each other. So now we got all that out of the way. I do want to go ahead and talk about comics that I've been reading the past few weeks, books that I've been reading the past few weeks. Now, I didn't write any notes down about this. However, when I did the test stream, I was in the process of reading this. I did finish reading it. It is Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Recommend it. Definitely read it. Definitely check it out. I read her two of her other books, The Thing Around Your Neck and Americana, earlier in the year. I did like those. I didn't really like this as much as either of those. I felt kind of indifferent towards it. It was a good read. Her writing was on point, and this was her first book too. So, I'd still recommend go ahead and reading it. I only have half of A Yellow Sun left to read. I did watch the movie recently, so I'm definitely looking forward to reading the book. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get my hands on it before the end of the year. If I do, that is cool. However, like I said, I go ahead and check it out, read it. I kind of forget details about it, and I didn't take any notes about it. I wasn't sure if I was going to do another of these streams. Otherwise, yeah, let me see. It follows a teenage girl. She's about like 13 or 14 or something. So it follows her, the events of her life with her family and the changes in her life. And yeah, it's decent. It's a decent coming-of-age story. So now I'm going to move on to the next comic that I read. When I read these, I'm going to go from the oldest that I was reading to more recent. So that was about two or 3 weeks ago that I read Purple Hibiscus. Now, next that I read, I have plenty of notes for this. Genius Volume 1, Siege. Now, it's Volume 1. Did it kind of leave it open for another follow-up volume at some point? I don't know. I wanted to like this more, especially because I've seen Afua Richardson's art around. However, I just wanted to like it more. The story wasn't very solid. The art was, for the most part, the art was decent. I've seen quite a bit of her art around, and I really liked what I saw. It didn't mesh it didn't mesh that greatly. It was an average. I mean, I've read worse. I've read better. And her art was kind of like mixed. Sometimes it'd be like really clean lines and all that. Sometimes it'd be like really messy and not as well refined and kind of dirty and on, you know, more like a closer to a draft than it was like clean lines and everything. It was also written by Mark Bernardin and Adam Freeman. And of course, illustrated by Afua Richardson. Published in 2014. Now, pretty much it follows like a gang leader. I didn't note down the name, did I? So it follows this gang leader as there's a conflict between the gang or gangs and the cops as it's going under siege in this community or what have you, right? So they're fighting back, fighting the power. And, you know, it's okay. However, let me see. I think it was Afua Richardson's first series or mini-series. She's done covers. I think she might have done some single issues here and there of other comics. I'm not exactly sure. However, you know, I'm very glad that I finally gotten around to reading it. Now, there is also a Genius pilot season issue that is free to read. And I'm kind of surprised that I thought it was... I heard about the pilot season because I guess there was like a bunch of pilot issues released and they took voting to see who is going to create a comic series from there. And I guess this one, I don't know if it was a single comic series that made it through a pilot or multiple. However, it's, you know, cool to see that it went through. However, like I said, I was really surprised that the pilot season was all the way back in 2008. That was a good 6 years from the time of the season, the pilot season, until they actually did run the miniseries. I would have been surprised that I'm surprised that the gap was so long between the two. Now, yeah, like I said, you know, I'd suggest to check it out. If for nothing else, then to check out her artwork. Otherwise, you know, like I said, I wasn't like super hype as fuck about it, right? And let's see, what are we doing? And I'm going to move on here. I wish I really had multiple screens. That would be like totally cool, but I don't. So let me see. Now, the next that I'm moving on to is a book. That would be The Sisters Are All Right, Changing the Broken Narrative of Black Women in America by Tamara Winfrey Harris. This was a very insightful book. This was released in 2015. Of course, it's like a social narrative and talking about stereotypes, and I've read this a few weeks ago, so I forgot the entire lengthy mouthful that I was going to say. However, you know, I don't really need to complain about this all. However, one of the flaws that I did notice in here was that she did not really discuss... I'm trying to get this. This is really thin too. She didn't really discuss trans women at all in here, and I was kind of disappointed in that. However, I'm trying to see if I noted it down. She was on a podcast and mentioned that she just admitted, you know, she didn't put in the efforts to reach out to people to get comments for a trans narrative. So I guess it's okay that was kind of left out. it's not really okay, if you will. However, it was good to hear that she did admit that she didn't put in effort. However, she did mention, from what it kind of sounded like in their discussion of the book in her interview, was that, you know, it kind of sounds like this opens it up for a continuation, for a follow-up later on. And it really did feel like a warm-up. This was her first book. She's written articles and essays and what have you for a few years. I think I've read one or two of her essays before. I just don't remember any of them in detail if I have. So, you know, I'm just going to put this down because otherwise I'm going to hold it up. Like I said, my optimal setup would be, you know, like at a table, I could just prop it up there to be all good, right? So, you know, it really does feel more like a string of essays than an actual, you know, lengthy, thorough book. However, you know, like I said, it's decent for reading it in short bursts. However, like I said, it's short. It's like 120 something pages. So if you speed read through it, you can easily finish it in a day. And the font isn't small at all either. It's, you know, a decent size font size. And like I said, I mentioned about the trans, yeah, 120-ish pages. You can finish in a day or a weekend. It took me a few days to read it. I took my time with it. And yeah, like, it does feel like a warm-up, so I would definitely look out and be interested in and pay attention for future books and works from Tamara. And hopefully future books will be a little bit longer too. I definitely do highly recommend it. Definitely you should read it for sure. How, you know, also, if you've been paying attention to any of the dialogue for the past few years, a lot of it isn't really something that hasn't already been discussed at length over the past few years. So I might be kind of reading through it and reaffirming and refreshing memory on what has already been written about and discussed at length over the past few years. However, like I said, it's always good to reaffirm and refresh memory on those topics. Wow, I just covered all my points that I discussed. I wish I could remember all the notes I had offhand. Otherwise, I'm gonna be pulling out my notepad like I'm cannabis, right? So, moving on. What is it? Umbral, Volume 1, Out of the Shadows. It's a dark fantasy comic written by Anthony Johnston and illustrated by Christopher Mitten. I wanted to like this more. The art was okay for the most part when it came to like the Umbral, which Umbral actually is also shadows. And the environments were kind of okay, cool. They were all right. I just wasn't like super sold about it. It left a little something to be desired, and it kind of had its slow paced moments as well, and then it would pick up every now and then, especially when they get into the action with these shadows, the umbrals, and then it would kind of slow down again, tell a bit more of the story. And yeah, like it starts off where they're trying to steal an item, and then everything gets fucked up from there. So of course nothing goes according to plan, and it's based around this. I think she's just a thief, and she's called Rascal. What I did find interesting later on in the volume in issue 4 was that they had a fight between the shadows and ghost pirates. I found that a little bit amusing. that was interesting. However, you know, like I said, I was rather indifferent about it. I wasn't like completely impressed. I wanted to like it more, and it left quite a bit to be desired. However, you know, I'm going to look forward to future volumes, future issues, and see where it goes. I wasn't like super sold on it. Also, sometimes I think I do recall some of the dialogue was a little bit more lengthy and long-winded, and preferably for me, I do like a lot of fast-paced action, not a lot of reading, because if there's action quite often, then the dialogue and the reading slows down the action. And however, like I said, I did like the more action moments. Oh, my voice. How am I only like what 20 minutes into this and my voice is already getting strained? I do have coffee, so, and it doesn't help with the coffee because if I am having difficulty focusing on moving along in my points and staying on topic, it's because I have coffee in my system. But with the coffee, I can talk at length. So I either got coffee or water over here. So moving on, let me see how many more I have to go. 5. I've been reading quite a bit the past few weeks. I think that we're moving up to about a week ago. Less than a week ago, maybe earlier this week or last weekend. Previous weekend. So Orbiter, written by Warren Ellis and illustrated by Colleen Doran. Graphic novel, it's science fiction, and it starts off with it's like set in the future, and NASA, I think it's inspired by the events where one of the previous, I know it's not spaceships, where they exploded or like in the early 2000s, and I think it kind of was inspired or it was released around then. So it makes quite a few references to that somewhere in there. I think it's even dedicated to those who died in that, the astronauts who died when they re-entered the atmosphere. I can't remember the names or the details at this point. So the space shuttle comes back to Earth after missing for 10 years. So there's quite a bit of mystery to unravel. It's a short graphic novel, about 100 or 200 pages. So it comes back. When it comes back, it's definitely very science fiction, where, you know, it was set off 10 years ago with the full crew. When it comes back, there's only one guy, and he's like totally spaced out in a daze or whatever. And they're going through it. They like find that it has been on Mars, and it's like covered in like a skin, like flesh type of substance, and it's living or something. So they get this guy. They learn about that, a little bit of what's going on. They confirm some of their theories that they ran through, and yeah, after it exploded. Yeah, after it exploded, when they tried to re-enter the atmosphere, NASA was defunded and shut down, and future space exploration missions were canceled. And that's pretty much that. I kind of jumped around a bit there, and I'm losing focus again. So I was kind of iffy about reading this sooner because I did want to read another science fiction something after I read Planets, the manga. That was fun. And I also read Transmetropolitan by Warren Ellis last year in 2014. And I had very mixed feelings about Transmetropolitan. However, I did like the atmosphere and the technology things that he created in there. I just had very mixed feelings about it. However, that was last year, and I ain't going to get into it too much here. Now, moving on to another comic. Another one I was looking forward to, Concrete Park, written by Tony Puryear and Eric Alexander. Let me see, what did Tony... He was a screenwriter for the movie Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was released back in 1995. I know he's done a little bit of other work there. However, I remember that was one of the notables that he's done. And Eric Alexander is most notable for her role in the TV show Living Single. I forget what other work she's done. I didn't note it down. She's been around, though. So, Volume 1, You Send Me. It takes place in Scare City on another planet entirely. It's kind of the setting, the area is kind of like a favelas. And it's all everything is gangs. That's what everybody is. You know, it's ran by gangs. What they do, they what is it? Not banish. We could say banish, I guess it'll work. So they send prisoners, violent offenders, or just anybody who slips through the cracks, it seems, off to another planet entirely. And that's pretty much it. It starts out like that. It kind of, for the most part, it really just felt like a pilot the entire first volume. We could say the first two volumes, because constantly throughout them they kept introducing new characters and more to the cast. Ooh, this is who this is, what have you, and then would just constantly keep moving on and introducing another new character. However, it mostly did follow, it seemed like the main character was Isaac. I forget if he had a last name, where it constantly, he keeps recalling events when he watched his sister get murdered and blames himself. I think he blames himself, or probably, I think he does blame himself in a way. So he's trying to cope with that and the events of witnessing his sister being murdered. So yeah, for the most part, the first two volumes really just introduce the cast, characters, the environment. Like, it even gives a rundown of like slang and the different gangs and the different characters, and you can even view those on the website as well for more details. I think they go into a little bit more detail on their website than they do in the comics. It's a little interesting. The world that they created was very interesting. It drew me in, and I had high hopes for it already, and I was really impressed. At times it was a bit long-winded. The dialogue was a little bit long-winded. However, I guess that's kind of expected when you have two writers on board. I feel like they could have lessened that out a little bit. However, then they could have also taken that to opportunity to stretch out the series, you know, more issues, what have you, right? So it kind of, with the action and the dialogue, it kind of goes up and down with the pace. It kind of fluctuates. For the most part, it is fairly consistent in its pace, though. So it's like ran by gangs, Earth outcasts are sent to a distant desert planet. I don't remember if they really specifically said whether it was even within our own galaxy. I think it was in a different solar system, and it was populated by people from all over. So it wasn't just Earth that was there. They also did introduce some lesbian characters early on. I don't remember if they had any male gay characters or any trans characters. It's good to see that inclusion, though, right? And I think, for the most part, majority of the cast was very diverse. There was like very little to no white characters at all. And of course, once comics are so white and whitewashed these days, it's always good to see something other than white in comics. And like I say, when I read comics, mostly looking for I don't strictly stick to it, but I mostly do read comics featuring non-white male characters and creators, right? So yeah, throughout the two volumes, it constantly does flashbacks. And then it moves on to volume 2, Respect. And it's like I said, it's mostly continuation. It feels like They just continue to drag out the pilot. And they didn't really need to continue the trend they were doing where it felt like a pilot in volume 2. They could have introduced maybe a few more characters. However, they didn't need, they could have paced it out a bit more, which they did compared to the first volume. However, it's like we've already been sold on the first volume, right? You don't have to keep proving that this is an awesome fucking comic. Let me see. And, you know, it also felt like the 2 volumes could have just been combined, honestly. And I'm sure at a later point there will be more. They'll combine it into a not an omnibus. However, it'd be cool to see an omnibus later on. Now, yeah, it you know, it had magic, it had gangs, gladiator fights, shapeshifters. And there we go, I think. And it was really just, both volumes was really just warming up. And near the end of it, we do find out what Concrete Park is. However, I'm not going to spoil that. You are definitely going to have to read Concrete Park yourself. And all the praise that I've given it, like I said, the only really complaint is sometimes the dialogue is a little long-winded. The art is on point. It fits with the environment, the world, the characters, the narrative. It's on point. It's a great fit. I feel like some improvement could be done for the action, like up the scale, if you will. However, you know, I'm satisfied with where it is now, right? So moving on, let's see, we're almost there. Got 2 more to go. Anybody commenting, asking me questions? You can ask me questions. Tell me what you've been reading. And not only what you've been reading, tell me why I should read it as well. Okay? Talk to me? Yeah? No? Okay, so I also read the graphic novel, which originally started off as a webcomic, Nimona. It is created by Noelle Stevenson. She also has done work on the Lumberjanes comic series, which I'm looking forward to reading. I don't know when I'm going to get around to it. I am looking forward to reading it, though. Let's see. You can read the first few chapters of Nimona on a website. I can go ahead and include a link in the description down below. However, I definitely suggest to check out the graphic novel as well. And yeah, as you can see, I'm not putting anything up here, any hard copies. I read them digitally, right? So if I don't display anything, it's because I read them digitally. And of course, if I was doing a vlog, I would edit it in, you know, post recording, right? I wasn't really a big fan of the artwork at first. With subsequent chapters and as it went on, it kind of grew on me, but she also did improve on the art. However, you know, it had me thinking, which I've seen some comics do before, some web comics, where they do go back and update and edit and improve upon their art that they did in previous chapters. So that would have been good to see. However, you know, I'm satisfied with what is here. Let me see. It follows a little girl named Nimona. She's hired as a villain sidekick. It takes place like in a fantasy world. However, they do have modern technology. That was kind of interesting. And as the story goes on, it kind of tells a story about Nimona. She's kind of rebellious, doesn't always listen to her boss, goes ahead and fucks up shit anyway. Did I mention she was a shapeshifter? So I thought it was pretty interesting. I liked it. Let me see. It grew on me. Shapeshifting, sidekick, medieval-like kingdom, modern technology. So yeah, then they're fighting or battling. I didn't note down who they were. However, he's a villain in medieval, and he's all like, "Oh, I got villainy plans, but I'm not going to be too much of a villain." Like, she was even more reckless than the villain guy that was, and he had to constantly be like, "Chill the fuck out," right? Chill the fuck out. It was good though. I liked it. It grew on me. It's good. I don't really have any major complaints about it aside from the art. The artwork in the beginning could have been a little bit more refined to be more consistent as it continues on. So the art would have been, more consistent. It was good though. I liked it. And I do look forward to what she has in store for Lumberjanes. Recommended, of course. Honestly, for the most part, everything that I read, unless I specifically say avoid the fuck out of it, I recommend for the most part. Maybe not so much this. However, I don't see why it would hurt. The Evil Within. It is a prequel to the game that was released. I do look forward to playing the game. I don't know when we get around to it. Pretty sure the game was released on PlayStation 3. However, I'd rather play it on a newer system, though. So I found it kind of confusing and hard to follow at times. And I also don't feel like I can... Excuse me. However, I don't feel like I can fully state, a complete... Until I've played the game, right? Like, I don't know how I completely feel about reading this if I haven't really played the game either. So, however, if it wasn't a prequel to the game, I probably wouldn't read it. I'd just wait until I've played the game or what have you. So, it's written by Ian Edgington and illustrated by Alex Sanchez for the first 2 issues. And he illustrated 30 Days of Night Spreading the Disease. I read all or most of the 30 Days of Night comic series in 2014. I liked most of them. They were decent. I don't remember his artwork at all. If I remember anything, it wasn't too bad. And the artwork, for the most part, it fit in. It fit, it fit the narrative. And also, Ed Anderson, he doesn't have quite a lengthy resume. The artwork was, it worked. And 30 Days a Night, it's like a vampire comic anyway, and there's a movie or 2 movies about it or something. I don't remember if the ongoing series is continuing ongoing. I remember there's some novels, too. I don't know. I'm not really interested in reading those. I just want to read the comics. And like I said, the artwork is cool. Like, they have, like, I guess... This is like what are they called? I think they called pinups. I thought they were pretty cool. They had some pretty cool artwork in here. And, it was like, I'm sure the game pretty much is like it, where it felt like a mix between, what is it? What did I note down? Nightmare on Elm Street and The Matrix. And I don't know if the game itself is hard to follow or confusing at times. However, it constantly would jump between one nightmare to another. And it was confusing because I'm like, wait, what's going on? I don't understand. What are you doing now? What are you fucking up now? It was cool, though. I kind of liked it. It was all right. I mean, the artwork wasn't bad at all. I mean, I've seen worse artwork. It was good. I fucks with it. I ain't got no major complaints about it. It was average, though. Between the writing and the art was on point. It was just average, though. But given that it is inspired and based off of a video game, it's not very often the comics that are based off of video games and maybe even movies where they're any better than average, right? However, if you like the game, I don't see why you wouldn't want to read it. I'm glad I read it. It was cool to read. And yeah, that also means because it is October 1st today that I'm doing the stream, I did start reading that today, and I finished reading it today. Every year in October, I read nothing but horror stories and scary shit or Halloween-themed stuff. So I'm looking forward to what I do have lined up to read for October. I'm also in the process of reading Battle Angel Alita manga. I only started it, so I can't really say how I feel about it yet. You know, so far it seems like it's all right. I'm not gonna be able to talk about it until I'm even done with it, right? So that's one of them that I have lined up that I could say in the future. I don't know how often I'm going to be doing these videos for October. I'm also planning to pick up a book from the library next time at the library. So I don't know. I might do another one in 2 weeks if I get into a binge reading. Maybe look forward to another stream next week. And I'll have a couple issues or volumes of comics to talk about. Otherwise, I want to try to also pick up some books as well. Like I said, it just depends on if I'm at the library. And of course, if I pick up a book, I might only do 1 or 2 of these streams for October. However, I'm looking forward to what I'm reading. I'm also, if you're tuning in, I would also point out that I am starting when the next videos go up for the entire month of October. All games going on both of my channels will be nothing but horror games, scary games, Halloween-themed games. That could also be kind of loose on what fits in with that criteria. You know, like I was kind of loose about it with Demon Souls in 2014 because it was like a dark fantasy setting. It had like monsters and demons and ghouls and shit like that. So I was rather loose on the criteria. So I would say, you know, kind of keep it open. And what does go up, I'm not going to go ahead and spoil it right now. However, I just say looking forward to it. I'm going to try to get some videos up tomorrow. I'm just not entirely sure. So I'd say, you know, and also recommend me your favorite horror books or comics or manga or what have you. And maybe I can keep them in mind to read. So yeah, that finishes up everything I had to talk about. That I added my notes and everything I've had to discuss here, from Purple Hibiscus, The Sisters Are All Right, The Evil Within, let me see, Genius, Umbral, kind of-ish. I'm not sure I could recommend it completely. You know, I don't see why not, though. Orbiter, Concrete Park is special. I could definitely see that being in my top 5 unless something knocks it out of its top spot. Nimona and, you know, Evil Within. Go ahead and check out most of those. I don't see why not. Let me know what you've been reading and if or why I should read it as well. Wow, I've been doing this for damn near an hour, haven't I? So if I get some folks in here with me at some point in the future and do some streams, some podcasts, some discussions, I think it'll be a bit more eventful and fun to watch than me just talking to the wall, to you, my favorite viewers and supporters, what have you. And there's one more thing I want to point out. I'm trying to remember what else I wanted to point out. I don't remember what else I wanted to mention. I feel like there was one more thing I want to mention. I don't remember what it is now. Oh, there was news. Even though I'm kind of losing focus and not following point to point that I wanted to. However, you know, I also feel that let me get into the pattern of doing this. Let me get the practice. Let me get in the routine, the groove of things. You know, should be able to greatly improve upon my ability to focus in as I go through the things, right? So in news, every once in a while I'll talk about news. I don't really follow news closely, but every once in a while I'll see something worth that catches my interest, right? Or something noteworthy. So Ta-Nehisi Coates was announced to write for Black Panther. I don't remember if it was like a story arc or a mini series. However, that's cool. I'm not really a big superhero fan myself. I usually don't read many superhero comics. Let me see how many comics that I read here that were superhero comics. None of them were superhero comics that I just discussed. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of superhero comics. Maybe one day I'll get into some Batman or some X-Men. I'm just not looking forward to it right now. Not soon. I'm still a little burnt out on Spawn and Witchblade, so. Why does this keep moving? Okay, so I hope this turned out all right, turned out decent. Like I said, let me know what you've been reading, why I should read it as well, what you would recommend that I read, what have you. And if you're interested, I'm not going to tell my ratings here. If you're interested to see what ratings I've given these, check me out. Follow me over on Goodreads, where you can keep up to date and everything I've been reading or what I'm looking forward to. You know, we can have those discussions, what have you. Talk to me. What should I read? Or what should I keep in mind to read for the month of October? I'm always looking for cool or interesting, unique, hidden gems, especially if they're unheard of. A couple of these seem like they might not be highly discussed or highly visible. So let me know. And, you know, I think we're good. So hope you liked this video. And if you did, leave a like and subscribe. And I do look forward to seeing you join me around again here very, very soon. All that good stuff. Look forward to seeing you joining me next time around here on Recent Reads. Title pending, possibly. Okay. Bye-bye.